Hey, welcome to A Conversation With. My name is Philip DeFranco, and today we're having a conversation with Joey Graceffa.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for doing this.
Oh my God, thanks for having me.
I know. I was when you came in, I started going like, oh wait, and I was just saying before we had the cameras rolling, I was like, oh wait, I remember you kind of like early days, like randomly having, I think it was you and Justine coming to a house party.
Yeah,
of mine,
that was like back in the maker day of like.
Yes, back in the day where I was like, yes, other people on the internet, I will allow you into my home. What's the worst that could happen? But that was, the way that I remember you then was, I feel like you were way shyer.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm still shy, but.
You think so?
No, absolutely. I just moved to LA. So it's like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I'm like surrounded by literally all the people I grew up watching on YouTube were like at this party. And I was like, oh my God, just act cool. Because I had just joined Maker.
Oh, yeah.
When I moved out here, it was like when they just created the network.
Very early days.
I came expecting to be a part of the station, and that didn't end up happening.
Well, I think a few of us were there, and then we were not there. It was interesting. But before we get too far, for those who maybe have not come across your videos, who are you and what do you do in your own words?
I am Joey Graceffa. I'm a YouTuber. I've been posting videos for the past 13 years, which has extended my career into multiple different directions. Like I'm an author, I create series, I create music videos, pretty much just variety of all sorts of things.
Yeah, I was looking through all the channels today, and I was like, okay, there's like the personal channel, which seems dedicated to the dogs right now. And then you have gaming, and then you have the YouTube original series, and then then you have the interview show, which is really interesting.
Oh, the Campfire Kiki.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a test little.
Oh, so is it something that you're digging, that you want to get into it, or no?
I don't know. See, I think I'd have to create a new channel based off the YouTube algorithm, which is kind of what you're doing right now with this channel, right?
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. YouTube's so weird. It's like mixing content on your channel, which is what I've always done, is just not the best thing right now. It's find a niche, stick with it, and just
this is what you are.
Yeah.
Chill out. Yeah.
So I feel like I have to start a new channel, which I think also the algorithm's like, if you start a new channel, we'll treat you better because...
Yeah, but it's like, but you better keep up with it. Otherwise, we'll smack you right back down. Yeah, it's that was because I thought that was interesting that you were still. I feel like it was an interview you did about a year ago that you were still kind of talking about the pitfalls of the algorithm, which was I found like really nice to see from someone that has a YouTube original series, because I think some people would be like, well, once you have that, then people you know, shut the hell up. But I think that it's definitely helpful. But it's also probably because of your old school YouTube roots. Like you've been, even with the success, you've been on that grind.
Yeah, always. It never ends. It's exhausting.
Yeah. a thing before, so I want to talk about kind of how you got to this point and things along the way. But I did want to knock out the thing that with skulls that we were talking about beforehand.
Okay. Sure.
It was a way that I found out that we were kind of neighbors at the time.
Yeah.
You text my wife about skulls at your house?
No. Okay. So
once again, this is like, I have a horrible memory, and I think Lindsay just said it to me in passing. So I was like, okay, now that Joey's coming in, I got to ask him.
Yeah, no, I knew that you guys lived close to me because someone mentioned it, and our houses, I guess, look similar. So everyone would comment and be like, oh my God, they live in the same house. Weird.
What if that was like the bigged YouTube secret? We just didn't talk about it. We were just like, just waiting for someone to catch up.
Right. I'd like struggled with my address getting leaked online. I feel like once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, you have to go through so many steps, and then there's just still no guarantee.
Yeah. So it got out there because my dad took a picture of the back of my house, and basically you can cross-reference photos online of like Redfin or Zillow or something, and people end up finding your address. So anyways, hadn't had any issues for a while of like people coming up. And then I have a gate. I have like a pedestrian gate that makes it so people can't like jump over it or whatever. So one night my friend came over and she's like laughing at the gate. She's like holding something and she's like, oh my God, I love your decoration. Like, this is so cool. And it was a skull. It was like this weird, creepy skull. And I like look at it and I'm like, why the hell is there a skull like at my like front entryway? And she just thought it was like there as decoration, and I'm like looking at it and I see all this writing on it. It has like an upside down like cross with all these like demonic symbols on it. And then I like flip it over and it says God hates fags on it.
Oh.
And so immediately I just like freaked out. I was like, oh my God, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like someone knows where my address is. They're clearly homophobic or they're just trying to F with me. And it like really scared me. So I immediately called the police and I like had them look into it.
I didn't know it was this serious. I thought it was like this really random. I didn't know this part of the story.
Oh, okay.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
So I was like so shook and like terrified because it's like a lot of fans like can spread your address just as if like it's like a friendly thing, but I don't think they realize that that can get into the wrong hands of people.
Oh yeah, very quickly.
And that just like, it actually affected me more than I think I realized because I was blogging every single day at the time. And it really made me take a step back and be like, I'm sharing way too much of my life and I feel violated. So I didn't want to express, I never talked about this actually.
Yeah.
So I just felt weird. Like to people think that they had that right to come to my house and then to leave that. And I didn't want them to win, to feel like I was affected by that. So I never like brought it up. Like, because I feel like some YouTubers will be like, please don't show up at my house. But sometimes it feels like acknowledging that.
It is like a double-edged sword because it's like, it's one of those weird things where it feels like acknowledging it. There's some people that might be kind of on the line of not being socially aware enough to know if something's okay or not. They're like, okay, it's a learning lesson.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but I feel like that's everything we share online.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I hope that that is the last of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's,
I know. So I texted Lindsay to be like, hey,
because we had our break-in.
Is this like a thing? Like, is there or did anyone show up at your house? And she's like, no, not at all. So
no, not at least not to our knowledge.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit. I feel like the last run-in we had feels like the old Office. We had someone walk in on my set while I was filming, which was very strange and scary.
I think I remember that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, it's one of those moments where I'm glad that it happened because it's part of the reason that we ended up getting security.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, so it's like we have people now 24/7 watching the building, keeping us safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those moments where it's like the opposite of like the first time you meet a fan where you're like, oh, this is real. This is like this real thing. All of a sudden, kind of scary.
Right.
The internet touches your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we talked about that horrible moment, I wanted to talk about before you got to this point, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I want to be an astronaut.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like this. It feels like that's a common theme. I kind of love that. Like there was that big, like, was it because you wanted to go to the moon or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. I had such a big imagination as a kid that I would play spaceship at home, like build cardboard boxes and just pretend I was a spaceman. And so I just thought I'd like go explore aliens. And I've always been like that. I honestly think that I am an alien. So it's like, I feel like I need to go find my people.
I love that because anytime we've started kind of asking that question because I'm always kind of fascinated, what was maybe the spark or the thing before the spark.
Okay.
And I think back, and when you're a kid, some stuff doesn't make sense. Like when I was little, I was like, oh, I remember I wanted to be a garbage man pop star. I don't know why those two things mix.
Oh my God.
I don't know. It made no sense. And so I feel like, especially when you have the mind of a child.
Yeah.
I like that you were shooting for the stars though. And I was like, trash on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then
God.
maybe, I'll do the Hollywood Bowl.
What was it about being a garbage man that was so intriguing to you?
I think it was, so I think it actually stemmed from my dad kind of trying to point out to me that like everyone, if you care about your job, that it matters, right? It was one of those things of like, think of like what is your daily life without the garbage man, right? And it's like, well, garbage is just all over the street.
Oh
so I like to think that's it. It's probably something way, way more idiotic, but I think that's my memory putting a bow on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
So also with kind of, with growing up, how would you describe your childhood? This is always a thing that fascinates me.
It was good at first until it wasn't.
So okay. Okay.
So yeah, life was amazing until I think I was like 8, and then my mom became an alcoholic, and then my whole world just spiraled into craziness. So I had like a taste of normalcy until like I I think 5th grade, and then she started going into rehab, and it was like a constant cycle of her getting better, just not being there for me, and then her and my stepdad splitting, and then it just turned out to not be that great.
Do you feel like it was one of those things where she'd always been struggling with it, but then you kind of just like realized you had that moment? Or was there like a thing that kind of pushed it?
No, because I feel like when you're a kid, everything just seems so perfect. Like you don't really notice those things. Like whatever she was doing before, she always, like, 'cause she was a single mother, she made it work. Like I had such a happy life, and in my eyes, she was like the strong, independent woman. And then suddenly she wasn't that person anymore. So it was like really confusing. Like, where did my mom go?
Right.
And I just kept hoping that she'd come back, and she still hasn't, which is unfortunate.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. When I was looking through things, I was like, okay, I feel like a sense of kinship there. Cause I was like, when you, with the story that you shared, I was like, I thought back to my childhood and like what I dealt with my mom. And for me, I feel like I hated to see it, especially because this person that I cared about and loved was going through this hard thing. And then, you know, it's not selfish because you're a child, but then you think of like how it's affecting me. I think it's one of those things where I try and put a bow on it. Do you feel like it helped you grow up faster, or do you think that it kind of hurt? Like it was like more of like a stumble in you growing up?
No, I mean, I have never been like the victim.
Sure.
But I think in a weird way, I think the trauma has definitely kept me in like a childlike mentality.
Interesting.
Like I feel like in ways I have grown up, but there's a lot of things about me and my personality that I'm just still like such a kid at heart, and like I don't want to grow up. It's like weird.
In what ways do you think?
I don't know. I just like... my boyfriend could probably tell you more about like
Isn't that the way? You're just like, they know me better.
How I'm like still a kid. I don't know. I'm just not ready to grow up. I'm not ready to get married. I'm not ready to do all these grown up things in my head. Like I still just want to be a kid, make forts, and just be like I don't know.
But I feel like that's pretty universal. I feel like like growing up, like especially, I don't know your personal experience, but it was definitely like, this is the way that it's supposed to go. It's like I was supposed to go to school, become a doctor, get married, have this certain life. And it feels like what you're talking about with like staying a kid is just being your own individual person, that you don't have to like fit into these other things that like we were kind of told that this is what a grown-up looks like.
For sure. And I think like also having the career as a YouTuber where you're like, at least for me, my main audience is young teenagers.
Sure.
So it also like pushes that narrative of like having to stay cool, young, relevant, like
not me. I feel like more each day that goes on, more and more of my audience is like, shut up, boomer. I was like, I don't care. I can't do it. So growing up, one of the things that also stood out to me was you've credited your at the time stepfather for being the reason that you kind of took big swings in your success. Can you explain that?
Sure. I think from as far as I can remember, he never set limitations on me, which I think is so important. Like I'm going to take that in with whenever I have children is like, I feel like when you have those limits put on you, you feel like, okay, this is my path in life. I can't exceed anything more than that. But he was like, you can do anything in life as long as you like put your mind to it and you put in the work. And so I was like, okay. So I never felt like my dreams were too big, which I think is how most successful people end up chasing their dreams, is because if they don't have limitations on them, then they just go shoot for the stars, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like it's one of those things that it feels like polar opposites. So it's like, so I feel like I'm a little bit on the opposite end. Like this podcast is just me talking about my mommy issues. That's what I'm realizing more and more as we do it. My mom was like constantly like, unless there was someone that was kind of attacking me, in which case we were aligned, it was kind of like, you're not that great at this. You don't look this certain way and stuff like that. And so I was kind of like fueled by anger. So it was like the walls were crushing down. And so I had to meet it. But I really love the idea that you have this person that is there for you that's not a biological parent, right? And I feel like That's a really interesting relationship because a place that I did get support was with my stepmom.
Okay.
Right. Someone that was probably the most loving, best person. Is that someone that's still in your life?
He is, but not in like
in that same way.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you end up kind of losing him in, I guess, that official position because your parent or your stepfather and your mother split up. And has that been hard to kind of maintain that relationship?
Yeah, I think just also living in LA across the country.
Where were you originally from?
I'm from Massachusetts. So my whole family lives over there. So keeping in touch with them is like really tough just because I'm like living my own life out here, which I think I kind of made a point to just because I was so upset at like my family and how I grew up that I'm like, I'm moving somewhere, creating my own little sanctuary, and I'm going to make my own happy life here. So I don't have to get triggered by anything, because every time I go back I'm like, oh my god, this is hell, get me out of here.
Do you feel like you kind of every time I go home I feel like I'm viewed still as a child, which is weird, or what is it for you?
It just takes me back to like bad places of just like,
is it kind of non-acceptance or is there something else?
I don't know what it is. It's just like, I don't know if it's like bad memories or just like the feeling, not being necessarily treated like a child, but there is a feeling that gets put back on me that just, I feel like I've become like my own person here, that going back. Because I also had like my whole coming out process that was a whole nother layer to it of like my dad and like the whole town that I lived in kind of bullying me and making me feel like I was not okay for being more feminine and being gay. So going back there, I still have that mentality that those people feel that same way. So I don't know. It's just, LA is just so accepting, and it just made me who I am being here. So
can I ask you about kind of that coming out process? Because I think when most people think about it, maybe connected to you, they probably think of the video.
Sure.
Right? But for you, I mean, especially because you're a public figure, it's right, personal life, then kind of the internet awareness and what kind of follows there. Who is the first person that you told?
It was my friend Kat Riffick, I think.
Oh yeah, Kat. Okay.
We were out to dinner and she was just asking me about like relationship stuff because I'd never dated anyone. But I got asked on a date by a guy. I was like so excited about it, but I was like, I feel like I need to tell someone.
Sure.
So she was like, so how's dating life for you? And I was like, well, there's a guy who asked me on a date. And she's like, oh my God. And then it just kind of came from there. And then was that, because that was the first person that you told that was outside, like ever? Yeah, ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so after that kind of first moment, do you start then telling other people because you feel more comfortable? And then when does family get involved?
They got involved probably like, I want to say like a year after.
Sure. And do you tell your mom first? Who do you tell? Or
told my sister.
Yeah.
And then it was so weird. My mom was in the car with me because she was out visiting. This was like during one of her like sober periods.
Sure.
So she was out. Actually, I think she just left a rehab facility in California, which was so annoying that she even came here to do it. But she got out. I picked her up and we were driving, and I kind of similar to how I originally came out. I was like, I'm going on a date tonight. And she's like, oh, cool. And I was like, it's with a boy. And she was like, oh. And then weirdly, like the conversation
just silence.
Yeah. But then she went home and she called me like a week later and she's like, so when you said you went on a date with a boy, are you gay? And I was like, yeah, that was me saying that.
You're like, no, we're going to go watch sports stuff or whatever two guys do.
Right.
Yeah.
But then with my dad, I came home for, I think, Thanksgiving, and oh my God, I was pissing myself, like just the anticipation of knowing what I was going to do. And my sister was there as well. And we just finished eating dinner, and my sister knew that I was going to tell him. So she like hands me like a glass of wine, and I just like chug it down. And I'm like, Dad, I have to tell you something. And we all sat there in like silence. And I was like, oh my God, like, how do I say this? How do I say this?
Yeah.
Cause like, it's weird to like get the words out. It's almost like saying it is the hardest part. So I just said it as quick as possible. I was like, just like got the words out.
Yeah.
And then, so my relationship with my dad throughout my childhood was he was like just really scary. He like wanted me to be this like straight son that played sports. And I always felt like I was disappointing him and I was like terrified of him. So all these years later, coming out to him, I had all this like baggage of like, oh my God, he's not going to accept me. And then once I told him, he didn't even like bat an eyelash. He just like looked at me with like loving eyes and just hugged me. And it was like,
that's
the
amazing
best reaction I could have asked for.
That should be the reaction every time.
I know.
I love that. Well, I love that for you. So, okay. So you have those experiences and then you have I'm going to tell the internet. Yeah. Right. Not just my audience, but all these people that are probably going to come across this thing that feel like they got to share their opinion. What goes through your mind before this? Because I think, am I correct in that you were originally going to come out via your book?
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like part of the first round of YouTuber books.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I wanted to do was share a lot of my life and kind of talk about like growing up with an alcoholic parent and all these different stories that I felt like my teen audience could relate to, since that was like during my teenage years. And one of the big parts was coming out and that whole journey. And I wanted to do it in a way that hadn't been done before and also in a way that felt more intimate. And so I had written it all out for one of the chapters to be my coming out. But then to promote the book, I came up with this concept to have a music video, which was my Don't Wait music video. And so I didn't originally think that music video was going to be my coming out. I was like, oh, if I just kiss a boy at the end, like people will be like, oh my God, I wonder, is he gay? And then people really just took that as my coming out video. And so I was like, yeah, that was my coming out video. Sure.
So you're like, might as well.
Yeah.
I love that. And so what happens then kind of in the next 24 to 48 hours? Is it this kind of like wave of love? Is it a mixed thing? What is
No,
it?
it was total. I mean, I was worried because I had this expectation of how I grew up with it not being accepting. So the moment that it went up and all the support came, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool that the world we live in now is so much more accepting from like 5-10 years ago. So to see the change of like the younger generation being so accepting just made me really hopeful for the future.
I love that. So to backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
When did you start YouTube? When you were in high school, or is that college time?
It was in 2007. I was 15. Yeah.
What kind of, why were you doing it and what kind of stuff were you making?
I started because I was already making home movies.
Sure.
So once I got my first digital camcorder, it was like a DVD camcorder. Like I could start putting them on my computer and editing,
which was huge at the time. We're like, what? Yeah.
So from there, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Now I can upload and edit and post.
Yeah. And so, did you always want to be in front of the camera, behind the camera? What was it kind of exciting?
I think
at
in
that
front.
Time?
I was always like making weird home movies that have like the Joey Show and like, I don't know, just stupid things where I was in front playing all these different characters. So,
and am I correct in that you also acted in high school at least?
Yeah, I did.
And you were like, you actually were the lead in a play?
Oh my God, you know so much.
You know.
You
Thanks.
did his research.
Thanks, Google.
Yeah, my 8th grade year, I was the lead of the high school play because in my high school, they had 8th graders as well.
Okay.
And so, I don't know, it just set me on this path of like feeling like I was good at something.
Yeah.
So
you do that, then you go to college, but you don't get into what was your dream school?
Oh, I want to go to...
Oh. Well, I was like, what did I do?
No. Emerson College rejected me like 10 times. I like kept applying. They kept
I didn't know they could even say no that many times.
I didn't either. So they kept waitlisting me. So I got waitlisted like 6 times total because the first time I applied, I got 3 waitlists, and then the second time 3, and then a final like 2 rejections. And so I had my whole plan. I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to get into Emerson. I'm going to go into the film industry. And that's the only way I can do it is if I go to that school. And so I ended up at some crusty college that was awful. It was so disgusting. So I dropped out and then moved to Los Angeles.
Is that Fitchburg?
Yeah.
I love that Fitchburg, the way that you described it as crusty, feels like it. Just the name.
Yeah, no, not a cute area.
The Fitchburgs right now are watching and they're very offended.
No, they know.
How
they know.
They're like, no, okay. If we're being honest here.
Yeah.
So you go there, you don't like it. Do you feel like you learned anything from that, or you're like, no, it's a complete wash?
No, absolutely not. Nothing at all. Like the cameras that they had us do, the whole checkout process of getting cameras. Like,
sure.
I'd been making videos on YouTube, so I felt like I was so much more advanced than everything they were trying to teach us.
Sure.
So I went to the first VidCon and I met Lisa Nova, and she was like my everything. Like I was like,
well,
oh
she was
my
like
God.
sketch comedy queen at the time.
Yeah. She's so funny. And so I just like idolized her so much. And so she's like, I'd love to have a meeting with you. And so I went to the Maker office, and they're like, this is while I was still living in.
Is this around the time where it was like still the second floor of like that weird Yeah,
it was like just the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't even think they had announced it or anything.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're working on this project where we're bringing on YouTubers. And I thought what she was asking was to join a station, because this was like a channel that was like a big collaboration channel, which you obviously know.
Yeah, well, because it was like Shane, Dave Days, and I were a part of like the initial thing, and then
and so I was like,
oh
my God, this is such a great opportunity. And they sent over a contract, and I was like, all right, I'm going to drop out of school and move to LA. And
so that was the reason.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so part of the reason why I moved out was the beginning of, well, before it was Maker the station.
Where did you live?
So Venice. So like, do you remember like the Venice houses with Danny, Lisa, Shay? I think you would have come in a few months after I think I was out at that point. But I mean, I was just kind of talking about on the last podcast. I remember just driving out here and stopping at Kasim G's house, and I was like, I can't believe we're doing this. This is crazy, because it's like nothing had happened at that point.
Yeah,
it was precedent making for the industry. So so I was going to ask like what pushed you, but that makes sense, because it's like this organized effort. And did you end up staying with Maker even through like Disney, or
no? I left before that.
Okay.
Yeah. In kind of like a somewhat sketchy way.
What do you mean?
Well, because I had a channel that it was called Winter Spring Pro. It was me and my best friend from high school. We moved out here on that channel, and then I created my own channel, which is my channel I have now. Mm-hmm. And so Maker kind of just like took that channel in, and then I got an offer from another network, and I was like, I need my channel back just for me. And then I actually just went with a different network.
You just pieced out.
Yeah.
You're like, what's a contract? I love that's hilarious. How did you we have a mutual old acquaintance, and how'd you meet Tony V for Tony Valenzuela, Black Box TV? I
was a huge fan of Black Box TV. So when I was out here visiting, I think it was like for Project for Awesome, they had this party. I think I went with Lindsay to this event.
Oh, okay.
She came and picked me up with Justine, and we went to this party, and I was like, oh my God, is Tony V here? And then someone texted him. I was like, there's like a really big fan who wants to meet you. And so he drove to the party, and I met him. He was like, I have to have you in something. And so then...
Oh my God, that's such a Tony line.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, I know with you specifically, he was like infatuated to get you on camera.
Yeah.
He was like... Tony, I feel like Tony treats people like just beautiful objects. He gets he like falls in love with them. Mm-hmm. I'm very we had a falling out years back, but I'm so thankful that I came across him, because he was the person that convinced me to get my first assistant and my first editor, and it completely changed the trajectory that I was on.
Wow.
Who's over these years, who's been kind of the it's kind of like a slap in the face accidentally to other people. Who's been like your favorite person that you've worked with or collaborated with in some way, or maybe the most unique or surprising? Because at this point, it's probably way too many people with this series that you have.
Oh, with Escape the Night.
I mean, I was going to say in general, but you've worked with God. It has to be like at least each season. It's over 20, right?
Yeah, I mean, and all the collabs I've done in the past and stuff. So what is the question?
Who's kind of like one of the most like, maybe because there's so many talented and great people that you love, who is kind of the person you were the most surprised by? Like,
surprised by?
You thought you already knew that they were like going to be good, but then like they were next tier.
I mean, I feel like Colleen Ballinger, she's always been such a supportive friend through like, because I think, kind of grew our channels at the same time.
Sure.
That it feels like we went through a very similar experience, and just through the whole experience, we always could lean on each other for stuff. So,
and you can't deny the talent. I mean, on Broadway now,
yeah,
crazy.
I know.
I love it. I love seeing like the ways that people can pop up either by staying online or go into a completely different medium.
Yeah.
Who's what's your calendar? 1 second. Fuck, I forgot about this. Wait, there was a thing that I wanted to talk about. I'm very jealous of you because you've been on The Amazing Race twice.
Yeah.
Were we the 20? I'm trying to remember. Did we see you? Did Lindsay and I see you during tryouts? I don't know if that was the same season. We were, I don't know. We've talked about this on and off. Lindsay and I were almost on a season.
Whoa. I think I talked to her about it.
Yeah. Because we were on the season that, this is very random, that FouseyTube ended up not getting on. And we lost our spot to Bernie Burns. Because we got put into the older couple category at fucking 30.
The audacity.
They had an AP get me in, unfortunately, an outfit very similar to this, but essentially like slacks and a dress shirt, and it was like I'm the older, because half the people that were on the season were like 22, and so we were definitely old in comparison.
Oh my God.
But one, I don't know if I remember seeing you there that season, but then two, what was that experience like? Because you go from online, you're in control, right, to this beast, this system. Like how'd you get on the first season that you got on? What was it like?
I don't know. It was like, it's kind of like a long story because the process for getting on it is so long and so annoying and just crazy. So
because you guys were like you were like one of the first online creators to be on that show, I think.
Kev Jumba was on it
with his dad. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I think like a few seasons before we were, but we were like the more community based YouTubers. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was crazy. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it just was a whirlwind experience. It was like honestly the best experience of my life, where it was just,
well, I imagine if you did it the second time.
Yeah, the second time wasn't as fun.
Oh,
I think because I could see, I don't know, I was just more aware of what was happening. It was just,
do you mean like setting up like dominoes to fall down, or manipulation, or
it just didn't feel as real the second time.
Do you feel like that was just based off of familiarity, or no, it's production?
I really don't know. It just didn't feel the same as the first time. And there was some stuff that happened that I was just like, this is just fraudulent at times. Like there was just certain things that I was like, I don't like this. And I think they had budget cuts and stuff that just also didn't make the experience that great.
Yeah.
But I'm going to speak of the first time. It was incredible. I loved it. Best experience of my life. And
yeah, no, I mean, it always looks amazing. From what I've heard from people here and there, it's like the least Frankenstein cut of all the shows to like create drama in any sense.
Yeah.
And then
no, absolutely.
But I will say, so when we were told like you can get the hell out of here, in a nicer way, like essentially like you didn't make the final cuts, I was somewhat relieved, but Lindsay was devastated. Lindsay was like, this was going to be the thing. I'm so glad, because I honestly think that we would have broken up. I don't know if we could handle the stress that show puts on people.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Like it's rough. And it's one of those things where they like have you get like zero sleep. You're starving the whole time. And so these emotions of like, you're in full on competition mode for an entire month. So like you want to make friends with the other teammates, but you're like, you're also my competitor. So it's like this weird game in your head where it's like, you're on your off time where you're like waiting in an airport and you guys are like hanging out. And then suddenly the cameras are on and you're competing against each other. It's such a mind fuck.
How far did you get into both seasons?
We got 5th place the first time, and then I don't remember what place. We were 3rd out on the second time. So second time, wasn't a good time.
So having kind of experienced everything that you've done on your own, doing kind of more mainstream things like the Amazing Race, what do you want to do next?
Well,
or is the answer everything?
yeah, I mean, it's still everything, but I mean, I love to make a movie, more TV shows. I just really like creating worlds and seeing them come to life.
Sure.
So I've written books in the past where I'd love to get those turned into a movie. I just really want the opportunity to have like a more traditional network to have faith in me to create a show for them. And I feel like with the success of Escape the Night, I feel like I want to like play on that and like maybe take that to the next level, whether that be take it to a bigger network that can give me the budget that I think the show deserves, and just really knock that show out of the park and really take it to the next level.
Well, because right now, so it's a YouTube original. Has the experience, I'm like, I gotta be careful with words. Has the experience been kind of progressively better, or does it feel like the system that they have? Because it feels like they're moving more towards ad supported, which in my head, based off of like the success they don't really, or the success or failures that they don't talk about with YouTube premium subscriptions, it feels like the smarter move to be able to properly fund these shows. Has it gotten progressively better, or has it been kind of stagnant?
It's really weird. Like, I feel like they're constantly changing their plan. So for me, it's been fine, but it's also like kind of frustrating because I want like a network that has like a clear vision and almost like a strategy. And it never really felt like with any of the seasons, they really had a strategy of marketing. So it always felt like they put in all this money to create the show. And that's my job, is to make it something special. But once that's done, it's like it's now back to you guys to take it out to the world and let it be seen by people. And so it's just kind of frustrating that the marketing side never really went anywhere.
There's always, I mean, I can't speak to your thing, but it always feels like there's disconnects between each department where it's like people aren't talking about, and which is frustrating when, you have this kind of clear vision and goal.
Sure. But they always had like a different marketing team each season. So they were constantly cycling people out. So I think that maybe that played into it a bit.
How did Escape the Night even like come to be? Like, was this something that you were kind of pitching for a while? Did you have a collaborative partner?
It was, so do you remember Vessel?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
I remember
this
Vessel.
was YouTube's counter to Vessel.
Oh.
They were going to give me like, I think like, I don't even remember, like $500,000 or something to create a show for them.
Yeah, for people unaware, Vessel was a company that either wanted exclusives or paid for like windowing of content at the time. We did it with our vlog like idiots because we were like, oh yes, that will help support. Oh no, now this is hurting our channel. But okay, yeah. So
it started with that anti-Vessel deal, and then so YouTube Red wasn't even a thing at the time, and then they started developing YouTube Red, and they're like, oh well, if we gave you a bigger budget, would you want to take it on to this YouTube Premium platform that we're creating? I was like, yes, if you can give me more money, I can make the show bigger and better. And so that's I went into a meeting with, I think, 4 ideas.
Sure.
And they really liked that one.
Was it more kind of the, do you feel like they went for it because of the collaborative nature? Whereas like you get the faces?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
You're just like, how can we, let's get the star power.
For sure.
So, okay. So is that how you funded then season 2 when it was kind of more of a thing? Or did you fund season 1 with kind of that first $500,000?
No, they gave me a bigger budget than that because
for season 1. Okay.
Yeah. So season 1 was the upgraded.
Sure.
If I went with Red.
If there was a network out there specifically that you think like that it would fit best with right now, what would it be? Because I feel like there needs to be that thing that kind of combines the mainstream to even though using the mainstream word is like stupid at this point when digital carries more weight half the time, but that combines all these kind of online talent with a mainstream push. I mean, the only places that have really tested it, it's like one host, but your show, I mean, it has that advantage of having, what is it, 8 to 10 big names each one.
So I feel like there's a lot of networks that are trying to dabble in the digital, like, or the creator, the digital star, like having people a part of their network, whether it be a show or a host. So I feel like this could potentially be the perfect show for them to test the waters because they're getting 10 big names to push to your platform.
Yeah. That was always like, so I haven't talked about it. A long time ago, I sold my channel and my company to Discovery.
Yeah.
That was like the goal, was to find this blending between like, okay, what can we put on the science channel and on the internet, combine those audiences, and then it just never happened. And so it was disappointing. But I think for something that's not a channel, that's specifically a project, I hope to see that, or maybe just get better budgets, better budgets with YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, do you think that you don't want to stay?
I don't know. I mean, I love YouTube so much, but it's kind of to the point where it's like, I would just want to explore my options.
Do you own it outright?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great that you have a deal like that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, so, okay, I won't completely shit on YouTube, because otherwise it would have been pretty predatory.
No, I mean, I was one of their first deals.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
I don't know what their new ones are like, but I got in early enough that maybe mine's different from others.
Out of all the channels that you have right now,
okay,
what gives you the most joy?
I think my vlog channel right now, because it reminds me of like old school YouTube, where it's just recording your life. And I mean, mine's mainly focused on the puppies right now.
Sure.
Because I have 7 adorable puppies that are unfortunately going to be gone soon.
I was like, is it even illegal to have that many dogs? I mean, wait, cut that.
I mean, they're not going to be there permanently.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think that's the channel I'm most excited about.
Yeah. Do you like sharing kind of personal glimpses of your life?
I do, just because I feel like it's the best way for me to connect with my audience, because there's so many different social media platforms that I can't keep up with, that it's like, this is what I know how to do, and I feel like it's the most intimate way to communicate with your audience.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so do you think that, speaking of kind of platforms, are we going to see like a Joey Graceffa TikTok, or does that already exist?
I'm considering.
I feel like there was a first wave, then there were the people that got paid, and then there were people like, oh shit, if that person's over there, I need to jump.
I'm kind of in that group.
But because I was thinking of like, okay, so I've been doing this for way too long.
Yeah.
But part of the reason that's possible is because like when I started on YouTube, I think also when you started YouTube, it's like we were getting those people that were 13 to 18, and now those people are just on TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, shit, do I do it? I was like, I'm not gonna dance. I can't be that dude. I can't be that dude. But I was like, if there are like lawyers and grown ass people memeing, I can do it.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
I don't know if I have the energy.
There's too many things.
So many things.
Too many things.
That's how I felt about Vine. I was like, I'm just gonna like go against Vine. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
Anti-Vine.
Yeah, and I never did it, and then it died, and I was like, okay, thank God I didn't do it. But with this, it's like, you know what? Maybe it's just so tiring. I don't want to do it, but I feel like I have to do it.
Here's what you gotta do. You gotta kill one of the YouTube channels. Which one's happening? Well,
honestly, I have to. Like,
really?
I would have to. I don't have. I need to get an assistant or a producer or someone to help me.
Do you not have anyone?
No, I just have an editor.
Joey, you're crazy.
I know.
What are you doing?
I'm drowning. Help me.
No. Yes, after this podcast, 1000%, I'll be like, we know these freelancers.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't believe that.
I know.
That's one definitely old school YouTuber mindset. But it's not. Is it because you're like super married to the vision of your edit or anything?
Not at all. It's like I've had producers in the past. It's just now I just need. It's so hard to find people that are good, because it's almost like if they're good at it, they could just be a YouTuber themselves. So finding those people who want to be behind the camera and have good ideas.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. 1000%. Yeah.
Okay.
After this, we're 100% gonna connect you. Yeah, man. I mean, you were talking about drowning. There's a lot of people editing and DPs and stuff that feel the same way because they can't break in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, it's completely shifting gears because that's what I do.
Sure.
I don't know if you've talked about, I feel like you've shared part of this. Are you okay? I saw like a tweet from 2 days ago that you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
You just found a doctor that's finally listening to you. And then I was looking further back and I was like, oh no, he's been going through something for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, totally. Okay. So it started when I was on book tour 2 years ago. I think I was just really run down. And I had a canker sore breakout, which I've had like all throughout my life. And it was just like one of those things that you kind of deal with. And so it just kept getting worse and worse. And then I tried this home remedy, which was like alum powder, which is used for pickling things. And I guess if you put it on a canker sore, it can like dry up the canker sore and it heals.
Interesting.
It didn't have that effect on me. It like caused like this weird infection where I got like a yeast infection in my mouth because of it. And so my whole mouth became covered in this yeast infection.
Oh, wow.
And then I think that like suppressed my immune system. And then I just kept getting worse and worse. And then I had to cancel the rest of my tour and then went home. And I think because I was meeting so many kids, I got a child virus, which is called hand, foot, mouth disease, which is like your mouth has all these sores, your hands, your feet. And so I had that. It went away. And then 4 months later, it came back. And then since then, every 4 months, it keeps coming back. And I finally found like a really great gut doctor who's kind of like took the time to talk to me, because I've gone through so many doctors that are just like, oh, you need to go to this doctor, you need to go there. And I've just been pushed around so much that it was nice to finally have someone listen to me and understand what's been happening and have some insight on what it could be.
Sure. So, because right now what you're experiencing, it's not any of those specific things that you talked about before, as far as like hand, foot, mouth disease. It's just something.
I think it's just like a lot of gut issues, which a lot of people have. But I guess my symptoms are just really bad. I think I might be allergic to something that I'm eating. I'm doing a lot of tests to figure out. Well,
I hope you figure it out. Yeah,
Thank you.
That's one, having to go to the doctor in general is usually horrible. But then two, have you always? Very random question. Have you ever, when you go, do you have someone with you, or
sometimes?
Do they is someone that helps to kind of advocate for you, or?
Yeah, like I even had my boyfriend's mom, who's not a doctor, a nurse practitioner.
Sure.
An RA, I don't know. Anyways, she'd go in with me and like kind of vouch for me that I'm not like just making that shit up. And they'd still just, I don't know, doctors in LA, I don't know if it's just LA, but they kind of just push you off. They like just, oh, here's an antibiotic, go ahead. Yeah. But they don't take the time to figure out what's actually causing the issue. They just want to put a Band-Aid on everything.
Yeah. Man, the only reason I asked is we recently did an episode about like having people that advocate for you, because it's like, personally, when I went to a doctor, I would just be like, okay, yes, whatever you say. Sure. And then you just you can get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
And then like the meaningful difference that happens when you either speak up, which I was never taught as a child to do, or if you have someone. But okay, well, it sounds like at least on the more positive end, more hopeful end for you right now.
For sure.
What's kind of getting closer to the end, what's kind of something that people don't know about you, right? If there's this thing that you haven't shared, it could be like, I hate saying the fucking like, do you have a hidden talent? Because when people ask that, I'm like, no.
I know, same. I definitely don't.
Is there something that you haven't shared and you're like, you know what? It's a random tidbit. And don't worry, I'm going to edit it to make it seem like you immediately had it.
I think the issue with like posting so much online is like, I feel like I've exposed everything about me. But I think one thing that I don't think people realize when they meet me is because I'm on YouTube, they don't realize that I am like a really shy person and like super introverted. So like if someone comes up to me with like super high energy, like it like kind of freaks me out. So I get like really nervous. So I think just that you're shy. I'm a shy person.
I don't think. I mean, I think I would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
I will say, random thing. I feel bad almost every time that we've met in person, because I feel like my go-to with you is me just talking. I did the same thing with Dr. Mike, just talking about how annoyed I am at how attractive you are as a human being. Really? And I'm like, and every time I leave the situation, I'm like, I made that weird. I made it fucking weird. But it's like, it's jarring. It's jarring and it feels like, because there's probably a little part of me, not really, but a little part of me that's like, you know what? I'm glad that Joey has some issues, because it's not, it's genuinely not fair. But so maybe that's a question.
Okay.
And it's a hard one to ask, but I asked Dr. Mike as well. Have you ever felt that your looks have hurt you? that like it went against you? Like maybe someone was in it for the wrong reasons. Do you feel like, or has it just genuinely made life easier?
I think it's just made life easier. I think I got so lucky with YouTube because I was definitely my wave of come up was like the cute boys that were just they just got popular with that. So it was like I got so lucky I fit the role of like what was doing well in like 2014 that's I think what really drew people to want to watch me in the first place.
Yeah.
And then they found out how amazing my personality is.
They were like, okay, we're in we're in twice.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you'd be able to come up now if you were starting from scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
What would your strategy be?
I think it would be similar to what it was back then. Is just you just have to climb your way up by collaborating with people of similar size as you, and just not giving up. I think it's also a game, and I love playing video games. That I kind of see YouTube as a similar thing, where it's like there's so much strategy and so much you have to do to grow your channel. That if you're good at games, I feel like you're good at YouTube.
So you kind of look at it, so you gamify the process of making content and marketing it, or yeah. I think
that's what it is, right? YouTube's. I feel like it's a game that we're constantly playing.
I mean, I think that's definitely the most positive way to look at it.
And the rules will just keep changing. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's accurate. It is a game where the rules are constantly changing, and you're just like, maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work. So the final thing that I usually ask people is if there's kind of any kind of bit of life advice, any sort of anything that you can throw out to someone that's listening now that might make their life or maybe something that they're shooting for easier. What would it be?
Should I say it to camera?
You can say it either way.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take it back to like the beginning of our talk. And that was about my stepdad telling me that anything in life is possible if you put your mind to it, and to not put limitations on yourself, because so many times like you think that you're only capable of this. But once like you go out and try and you like surprise yourself that you could achieve things further than that, it kind of wakes you up. So I think just knowing that you can just shoot for the stars and don't hold yourself back. Just go for the things you want to do. Because also, no one's going to fight harder for your dreams than yourself. Like, you can't rely on people.
No one should fight harder for your dreams than yourself.
I know, but some people rely on like their agents or their managers.
Totally. And I think that's a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, you can pay someone a check, you can give someone a percentage, but if you're expecting like that person to fucking kick the door open for you,
right?
A lot of the time you're going to fall short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been so many times where it's just like, I want something done and I like leave it in the hands of other people. And it's just like, you know what? If I just do it myself, I can get it done and I can do it better.
But I don't want this part of the conversation to steer you away from getting people 1,000%. Yeah. Because you are putting out probably more stuff than me. And I have a support system, like not emotionally, but like literally. Yeah. You gotta.
I know.
Actually, on the note, I know that I said last thing, but on the note of like all that creation, what is your goal with it? What are you hoping to do with the stuff that you're making right now?
I mean, I think it's always just to maintain relevance so I can achieve my ultimate dreams. Because I feel like if I ever lose my audience, it's like all these opportunities are going to go away now, because it's like I have all these amazing opportunities. It's like I almost have like a Disney Fast Pass where I get a little edge over people because it's like I have this audience that gives me a little extra.
Oh, interesting. So you kind of see it as so when you say your ultimate goal, is that more along the lines of like we were saying with like a TV show? And and you feel like that's within reach if you maintain that audience. Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting thing to me, just because I'm so outside of kind of that mainstream world. Is that kind of the ecosystem right now, that essentially if you don't have that audience, like it's twice as hard, 3 times as hard?
I don't know. Maybe it's just that's how my brain's been wired, because all the opportunities I've had is because of my audience. And I'm like, oh, like I'm not going to get any opportunities if I don't have an audience following me.
Sure.
Which is kind of dark and like sad, but
because I mean, part of the issue there is like, if you're sharing yourself and you're forming this connection, but at the same time, it sounds like in your world, like you almost have to treat the audience as a currency or as like a way to pass through that, Do you struggle with that at all?
I do. Just the fear of not having something that I love and like getting to live my dream and have that taken away is terrifying.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it doesn't happen.
I don't think so. I feel like I've survived.
You have, yeah.
These past 13 years that it's like, well, it's exhausting. I feel like the only way that it's going to end is if I give up, which I don't think I'm going to.
Sure. And give me and several other people no reason to ever talk about you.
I've managed to stay out of.
I don't think I've been able to use you as a thumbnail, Joey. Except today or this Wednesday.
Okay.
But for a good reason.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.